I'm here for the girl. The words settled over the entrance hall the way smoke settles, quietly, insidiously, making it difficult to breathe. I'm here for the girl. Director Han Mi-suk said it with the pleasant authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed in matters they had defined. She was 53 years old, the registered administrator of St. Mary's Orphanage for 11 years, the recipient of 3 municipal social welfare commendations, and the woman responsible for the scar on a 6-year-old child's arm. Jae-min had not yet confirmed this last point. He did not need to. He had spent 12 years developing the ability to read people in the first 30 seconds of encountering them. He read them in the small details, the way they held their hands, the timing between listening and responding, the quality of attention they directed at the people they considered beneath them. It was a skill that had kept him alive on more occasions than he could enumerate. He read Han Mi-suk in 15 seconds, and he did not like what he found. There was something performative about her concern, something that wore the face of legitimate authority, but moved differently beneath it, a calculation rather than a care, a ledger rather than a feeling. When she said the girl, she did not say it the way people speak about children. She said it the way people speak about things they own. Priceless was still pressed against his legs, still shaking, both hands fisted in the fabric of his trousers, her whole body communicating a single message with absolute clarity. Don't let her have me. She's legally under my care, Han Mi-suk continued, with the patient tone of someone who has prepared for this conversation. I've come to collect her and return her to appropriate supervision. No. The scream tore from Priceless before anyone else could speak. She pressed herself more tightly against Jaemin's legs, both arms wrapping around him. Please, Papa. Please don't let her take me. The entrance hall absorbed the sound. Jaemin looked down at the child, then slowly up at the woman. He crouched beside Priceless. When he spoke to her, his voice carried a quality that his staff had never heard from him before. Not softness, exactly, more like precision directed inward, the way a surgeon is precise around something fragile. I won't let anyone hurt you. She looked at him with the complete, uncurated trust of someone who has decided, at considerable personal risk, to believe in another person. It was the most terrifying kind of trust, the kind that had no armor, no contingency, no calculation. The kind that a child offers and that adults spend their whole lives either honoring or destroying. He stood. I know what was happening in that building. Han Mi-suk's expression shifted slightly, not enough to qualify as reaction, just a fractional adjustment, the kind that people make when they revise their estimate of what a conversation will require. I don't know what the child has been telling you, she said. She's imaginative. She has a tendency to exaggerate. The beatings, discipline, the children sleeping outside in winter, routine consequences for misconduct, the food reduction, a structured approach to earning privileges. She had an answer for everything, Jae-min noted. Rehearsed answers, constructed answers, the answers of someone who had spent years translating abuse into administrative vocabulary. She's a difficult child, Han Mi-suk said, pointing at Priceless. Stubborn, insubordinate. She defends other children against staff. She questions every rule. She causes disruption. Priceless folded her small arms. I stole one piece of bread. Because you were hungry, Jae-min said, quietly, not looking away from the director. Because she broke rules, Han Mi-suk corrected. Because the food was insufficient. The portions are regulated. She was 6 years old, and she was hungry enough to steal bread. His voice had not risen. It did not need to. And you put a scar on her arm for it. The entrance hall went very still. Han Mi-suk's composed expression developed a hairline fracture. Then the director's posture changed. Something calculated moved behind her eyes. A decision to shift the ground of the conversation entirely. I see she didn't tell you, she said. Jae-min's eyes narrowed. Tell me what? She's sick. The word hit the room differently from the others that had been exchanged. Everything stopped. even priceless. Jae-min turned slowly toward her. The child had gone very still. Not the stillness of someone who is calm, but the stillness of someone bracing for something. What, he said. Priceless looked at the floor. Han Mi-suk reached into her handbag with the composure of someone who has been waiting for this moment. Medical documents. She spread them with deliberate care on the side table by the entrance. Nephritic syndrome. Her kidneys have been failing progressively for 2 years. She requires daily medication, regular monitoring, dietary management. The woman's voice was almost gentle, performing concern now that she had something that required performance. You've been keeping a critically ill child without any of her treatment protocols. Jae-min stared at the documents, then at Priceless. The little girl still had not looked up. Papa, why didn't you tell me? The question came out softer than he intended. He had not meant it to sound like an accusation. He was not sure it didn't. She lifted her face. The expression she wore destroyed him entirely, because it was not defiance or dishonesty. It was fear. The specific, gutting fear of someone who has offered themselves and is waiting to find out if they will be sent back. I thought. Her voice cracked. I thought if you knew I was sick. What? You wouldn't want me anymore. The bodyguards were looking at various other places in the room. The housekeeper, who had appeared in the hallway doorway, had her hand over her mouth. Jae-min said nothing for a moment. He was thinking about a 6-year-old girl who had spent 3 years at an institution that punished her for being hungry, who had learned to absorb other children's consequences because she could not bear to hear them cry, who had hidden a medical condition for 42 days, not out of dishonesty, but out of the deeply conditioned belief that illness made her less worthy of being kept, who had believed she needed to earn love rather than simply receive it. I'll adopt her. He said it the way one states a decision that has already been made, that was perhaps made before the words arrived to express it. Han Mi-suk blinked. What? I'll adopt her legally, formally. I'll engage my legal team today. Priceless looked up so quickly she nearly lost her balance. Papa. The hope in her voice was the most extraordinary sound he had ever heard. Han Mi-suk shook her head. That won't be possible. On what grounds? She's a special case. The woman's smile returned, and it was the wrong kind of smile, the kind that belonged to someone who believed they held advantage. The special children have particular value. They cannot simply be removed from institutional care without extensive review. Several of the bodyguards had noticed it, the specific language. Not welfare language, not care language. Value, special, removed, property language. Jae-min had noticed too. He stood for a moment, very still, and then reached into his jacket. The sound of the safety disengaging was very quiet in the entrance hall. Han Mi-suk went the color of flour. The weapon was not raised. He simply held it at his side, the way someone might hold a pen, a tool for communicating something that words have not yet fully managed. If you were not standing where you are standing, he said, and you were not who you are, you would not leave this building. His voice remained entirely level. I want to be clear that I understand exactly what you've been doing. I want you to understand that I have resources you have not accounted for. And I want you to leave this property before I make decisions I don't regret. The director stepped backward. You'll regret this, she said. Her voice had lost most of its composure. She's under legal guardianship. I have every right. Leave. She turned and walked, and then she was moving faster than walking. And then the gate at the bottom of the drive was swinging shut behind her, and the sound of her footsteps was gone. Priceless waited until the gate closed. Then she wrapped both arms around Jaemin's waist and pressed her face against his chest and stayed there. Thank you, Papa. He put one hand on her hair. She won't come back, he said. It was a promise he intended to keep. The evening was quiet, almost peaceful. Priceless had eaten dinner, done her school reading with the focused intensity she brought to everything, and fallen asleep on the sofa in Jae-min's study with a mathematics textbook open on her chest and her hair splayed across the armrest in extraordinary disarray. Jae-min had covered her with a blanket and made 3 phone calls to his legal team, to 2 investigators he trusted, and to a contact in the Municipal Welfare Authority who had owed him a favor for several years and was now invited to consider the debt called in. By morning, he would know everything about St. Mary's Orphanage. By the end of the week, he would have evidence. And after that, the knock came at 9:30. He heard it from the study, heard the front door open, heard the particular quality of the silence that followed, the silence of people who have arrived with paperwork rather than conversation. The guard's voice through the intercom was carefully even. Boss. Police. With the director. Jae-min looked at Priceless, asleep on the sofa. He covered her more completely with the blanket. Stay here. The officers were professionally courteous. 2 of them. The director behind them wore an expression that had reconstructed itself into civic concern. Mr. Kong Jae-min, you are under arrest for the unlawful detainment and unauthorized custody of a minor in violation of registered guardianship provisions. The handcuffs were produced. A single sound erupted from the hallway. No. Priceless came at a dead run. Oversized pajamas, bare feet on the marble, tears already streaming. She had not gone back to sleep, or she had woken at the sound of voices, or she had simply known. In whatever way, this child seemed to know things before they had been said aloud. She positioned herself directly in front of Jae-min, 65 pounds of 6-year-old, standing between a man who dismantled criminal organizations and 2 armed police officers. Leave my dad alone. Not guardian, not Mr. Kong, not the man she lived with. Dad. The word hit the entrance hall like a stone hitting water, rippling outward from the impact, touching everything. The officer swallowed. Han Mi-suk's expression flickered. Jae-min gently moved around Priceless and crouched to her level. He put both hands on her shoulders. It's all right, kiddo. It's not all right. Look at me. She looked at him, eyes enormous, chin trembling. This is nothing, he said. You understand me? This is absolutely nothing. I will be fine. You promise? He smiled at her. One of the real ones, rare and complete, nothing held back. Promise. She opened her mouth to respond, and then swayed, once, the way a candle flame moves before it goes out. He caught her before she reached the floor. Priceless. The name tore out of him in a register that had nothing to do with control or composure or the careful cultivation of fear he had spent 12 years perfecting. It was raw, primal, the sound of someone realizing, in the space of a single second, that the worst thing they have ever feared is not a bullet or a betrayal, but the limpness of a small body in their arms. She was pale. Her lips had gone faintly gray. Her eyes were closed and would not open. Everyone in the entrance hall stopped moving. The officer with the handcuffs looked at the unconscious child, then at the man holding her. The man holding her looked back. There was nothing in his face now except one thing. One clear, absolute, unambiguous thing. Fear. Not of the officers. Not of the handcuffs or the charges or the legal consequences of whatever came next. Fear for her. To be continued.